Om Sam Saraswati Namaha. Namaste. This session we're going to discuss chapter 3 on page 44. Please join me in recitation. Hari Om Asusisana Rishabo Nabimo Kana Kanaka Shobanastarshaninam Sagrana Namisari Kabira Satansina Ajayat Sagamindraha Sagrana Nina Nimishena Tushtuna Yutantarina Tushabnina Trishuna Tadindra Jagata Sahatwam Yudo Narakishu Hasti Napishna Sarishu Hasti Sarishagivir Vashi Samsrashta Sagyuda Indro Ganina Sarishta Jitsu Mabhavahu Sharda Ugra Andra Prapti Virasta Vyastate Gritya Pratina Rakshawamitram Abhabhamanaka Prabhancha Sena Prabhidno Yuda Takanasmakam Vidyam Pita Radhanam Balavidya Prabhirakas Prabhiraka Sahaswan Ambaji Sahamana Ugraha Abhibhiro Abhisatwa Sahoja Jaitam Indra Ratmatishta Govit Gotravidan Govidan Bhajabadum Jayantamajma Pramidanta Mojasa Imam Sajata Pranudhiradam Indram Sakayo Anusabrabandam Amigo Trani Sahasa Gama Manogoyor Indvirakashaban Indru Indraha Jushabanaha Pritana Shada Yudos Makam Sena Abdurayutsu Indrakasam Nita Priyaspatir Dakshana Yagya Purohitu Somaha Devasena Nadi Pantatinam Jayantinam Marato Yantagram Indrashta Krishno Bharunasya Ragya Avidya Namantam Chadagram Mahamanam Sambhuvanam Shabhamo Nango Sho Dekdam Jagantan Buddhastat Udarshanya Magabana Yudatyu Satwanam Mama Karnamadam Si Ubadraham Bhajinam Bhajinam Yudradhanam Jagantanyan Tugoshahan Asmakam Indratura Samhiteshu Bhatyeshmatkamakam Ya Ishabastu Jayantu Asmakam Viraputre Bhavasvamam Udeva Bhavatakaveshu Amisha Chitram Pratilo Vayanti Prihanam Yapave Parehi Abhiyaprahir Nirdaha Ritsu Shokiratina Mita Samasachantam Abhasishra Parapata Sharabye Brahmasantite Gachaha Mitran Prapadvasvat Mani Kamcham Kamchanojisha Preta Jayata Indro Nara Indro Akasamaya Tadu Ugravakasan Dubakamo Nadrishakagat Hasada Asoyasina Marutaha Harisha Bhabyoitida Ojasam Spardamana Tangugata Tamasa Pratena Ebhyatamo Numi Unyananyam Najanam Yatravaraka Sapantanti Kumara Dishika Iva Kano Indro Priyaspatir Atiti Shamaya Tadu Vishwa Shamaya Tadu Marmani De Barmana Chada Gami Somasam Rajasamita Pustam Aro Vibru Aro Edyoro Varunaste Krinotu Jam Tambam Twanu Deva Madantu Yati Tritiyo Adhyaya. Praise to Om. And now this is a hymn to Indra, and we're saying, Shiva, you're like the ruler of the pure, the ruler of the gods, the ruler of all divinity, the ruler of all that shines. Indra, the leader of our army, which is going to protect divinity and not allow any inimical negativities to occupy the kingdom of heaven. So we're praying to you, you move swiftly with your sharp lightning, making our enemies fearful. You are like a bull, slayer of enmity, driver of humanity, extremely radiant, our hero Indra, who alone conquered 100 enemy armies. The rule of the pure, he's not going to let any negativities enter into the kingdom of heaven. O human warrior, with great words, call for Indra's help. He is radiant, steadfast in victory, unconquerable. He has a luminous light and an arrow in his hand. He will defeat the armies of your limitations and destroy them. All the limitations, all the negativities, all that keeps us from manifesting our highest potential. Indra is going to destroy, he's going to eradicate. He holds that arrow of one-pointed attentiveness that's always aimed towards its target. He's got his focus on the goal. He knows his laksh. He knows his goal. He knows he takes careful aim, and he's going to slay all the negativities that preclude us from manifesting our highest potential. All warriors, every sadhu, call upon Indra to help us, to guide us, to inculcate his qualities and characteristics. Hey warriors! He who controls limitations, who makes war with limitations, who defeats all limitations on the battlefield, who drinks the nectar of devotion, who has great strength in his arms, who is excellent with the bow of determination, who is extremely accurate with his arrows of attention, may that Indra protect us. Hey Brihaspati, spirit of the vast, the Shpati of the Brihat, the spirit of the vast, of the immense, of the unfathomable. You destroy all negativity, you destroy all limitations. You are a firm opponent in battle, continually traveling in your chariot. Please protect our conveyance. So now we're praying to Indra's guru, the guru of all gods. You protect us, give us your wisdom, give us, protect this conveyance so that the soul within can reach its objective. We're marching off into battle. Here we are on our chariots. This is the conveyance. Within is the driver. We're calling on Indra to be the general of our army and Brihaspati to guide the strategy so that we reach our target and defeat all the enemies. Hey Indra, rule of the pure, you ride on an invincible chariot. You possess divine strength. You exist since ancient times, a strong hero with much food, above all limitations, fierce in battle. Look at you, how the nourishment you provide. You're fierce in battle, you're a strong hero, you're above all the limitations. Hey, guide us. You are the general of our army. Hey, general, make us heroic warriors as well. On your four sides are your warriors and the multitude of your helpers. From your strength you reveal divine hymns of knowledge. Now that's your strength, Indra, and that's how you rule, with divine hymns of knowledge. And you communicate inspiration, and you make all of us heroic warriors as invincible members of your army. We too will conquer our limitations, and then we will know no limitation. Hey, all you divine beings endowed with equanimity, and I'm talking to you and you and you and everyone all around the world, all our divine family. Invite Indra, the rule of the pure, to commence his heroic action. That Indra is well versed in the ways of heroes, well versed in modes of expressions. He has arms like a thunderbolt. He is victorious in battle, and he is called destroyer of limitations. Hey, all you divine beings, call Indra to guide us in the battle. Indra, rule of the pure, protect our armies in battle. Indra, you split apart the cloud which obscures the light of wisdom. So here's the sun which is radiating the light of wisdom, and the cloud comes up in the form of ignorance and attachment, and it obscures the light of wisdom. We don't see the light because we always see is the cloud. And then Indra comes with his thunderbolt and his lightning. He strikes the cloud. The cloud breaks apart. All the water falls to the ground, nourishes the earth, and the sun comes out again. We can see the light of wisdom one more time. Indra, protect our armies in battle. Indra, you split apart the cloud which obscures the light of wisdom. You shine with compassion, the hero who performed 100 sacrifices. They say anyone who has performed 100 sacrifices becomes an Indra. You are victorious in all confrontations and superior to every warrior. Let Indra, the rule of the pure, be the leader. Brihaspati, spirit of the vast, be on the right. Let the sacrifice be presided over by devotion. May the armies of the gods march on to victory, and may the swiftly proceeding move forward. That's us. May we all move forward towards our objective. Raise your voices in shouts of victory for Indra, who causes the rains of the fulfillment of all desires, for the king Varuna, the lord of equilibrium, for the 12 gods, the sons of Aditi, the shining ones of non-duality. Praise the swiftly proceeding gods, all with great minds, the victorious armies who are capable of bringing harmony to the earth. We've got to start to bring harmony to ourselves, and then to our families, and then to our communities, and then we make an earth that's filled with harmony. Oh, one of great strength, give great bliss to all. Fill our minds with great delight. O slayer of Vritra. Remember, Vritra was the cloud. He means change and modification. The changes and modifications of consciousness. Come quickly on your invincible chariot with triumphant shouts, along with your enthusiastic heroes. Indra, come on. You've got to lead us in battle to face our Vritras. All of the changes and modifications that we go through, all of the clouds that obscure our light of wisdom. Indra, come with your triumphant shout and your thunderbolt, well armed on your invincible chariot. And we are enthusiastic heroes. We're striving in the path of self-realization. Please, Indra, you lend your assistance as well. O Indra, rule of the pure, topple the flags of all limitations and protect us. When you topple the flag of the enemy, he has met his demise. May our accurate arrows destroy all enmity. And now we're not trying to destroy enemies, we're trying to destroy the enmity. So therefore, we have no enmity, no hostility, no rejection of anyone. May our multitude of heroic beings receive great delight from the defeat of the armies of limitations. And boy, I'm sure you all know those armies of limitations come to us again and again and say, don't do it like that. You can't do it that way. You're limited. Be small and get smaller and smaller. Oh, all you gods, please protect us. Oh, soldiers of Indra's army, if you are tempted by the objects of unfavorable consciousness, then put an end to their manifestations. If you don't like what's on your mind, change it. Don't dwell in negativity. If you don't like what's in your mind, think something different. If you try to accept them, you must go to them. Every time you try to get cozy up to a negative thought, and you become the essence of your thought. Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And what I think is what I am. And if I'm thinking negative thoughts, I become a very negative Swami. You must see the confusion they bring to your heart and resist union with the intensity of their darkness. Please, resist uniting with the intensity of that darkness. If you have negative thoughts, dismiss them. Change your thought. Change your mind. Think positive thoughts. Fill yourself with the light of devotion and divinity. And they will meet their demise immediately. If you dwell in that thought, if you go to that thought, you assume the characteristics of those with whom you associate. So dismiss the intensity of darkness, resist union with the intensity of their darkness. O all divine beings, your sharp weapons bring the armies of limitations low. Enter into the body of 5 elements and let no enmity remain. Dismiss all hostility. Dismiss all conflict. Dismiss all confusion. Illuminate all darkness and let no enmity remain. Hey, all our multitude of warriors, confront the army of limitations and gain victory. Indra, rule of the pure, your victorious form gives great pleasure. Let your arms be strong. Hey, Maruts, lords of emancipation, let all the enemy warriors who came to battle with us before dissolve all of their conflicts so that they cannot remember their previous dispositions and all their karmas will be destroyed. Make them forget why they came to fight with us. Every negative limitation, and just destroy his capacity to remember negativity and to remember the limitation. All their previous dispositions, when they come into association with the pure, then let them assume the qualities of purity. All their bad karmas will be destroyed. May the armies of limitations be defeated by the multitude of our warriors' arrows. Thereafter, Indra, Brihaspati, and the mother of the gods, Aditi, will always give us delight. O you who make sacrifice, we make the armor on your chest impenetrable. It cannot be permeated or pierced by any negative weapon. May the King of Devotion grant you armor which repels death and makes you invincible. May Varuna, the Lord of Equilibrium, make your armor extensive, and may all the gods be with you and continually inspire you with enthusiasm. Thus ends the 3rd chapter. Do we have any questions?
Swamiji, the first question is, can you please elaborate on the 100 sacrifices for Indra?
Yes, it says whoever makes 100 sacrifices becomes Indra.
Swami, you already done.
And Indra is the ruler of the kshetra. And now the kshetra is the field. The kshetra is the field of activity, the field of karma, and each Indra will define the kshetra. So it's a paradigm of reality, it's a loka. Now there's an Indra of the Devi Mandir, and there's an Indra of United States of America, there's an Indra of the entire earth, and there's an Indra of all the heavens. And as we grow in the strength, we continue to make 100 sacrifices and another 100 sacrifices. And the paradigm of reality of rulership grows and grows and grows.
Question from Dilip of Florida.
Yes, Dilip, namaste.
I want to understand the true meaning of verses 10 and 12.
Well, Indra is the one of great strength, and he gives great bliss to all. Fill our minds with great delight. O slayer of Vritra, you who destroy all the changes and modifications, you make us still, you make us pure, you make us clear in equilibrium and balance. You destroy all the changes and modifications of consciousness. Come quickly on your invincible chariot with triumphant shouts, along with your enthusiastic heroes. Come and save us. Make us, save us from relating to all the changes and modifications. You see, Aim Rim Kling Cham Dale Viche. We are the witness of all the changes. We are no longer changing ourselves. And now I'm calling on all the soldiers of Indra's army. If you were tempted by the objects of unfavorable consciousness. Now, if negative thoughts are pulling at you, if negativities are tempting you to pay attention to them, and they're saying, look at me, I'm a negativity, dwell here in self-conceit and self-deprecation, then put an end to their manifestation. Stop allowing those thoughts to manifest. Fill your mind with so much divinity, so much light, so much brightness, so much goodness, that there's no room for any bad thought to stay. It can't manifest. So if you try to accept those bad thoughts, then you will go to them. You must go to them. They tempt you, and then they attract you, and then you go to them, and when you go to them, you unite with them. You must see the confusion that they bring to your heart. I don't want to go there. And then resist union with the intensity of their darkness. Don't unite with that darkness, Dilip. Anytime a negative thought comes to you, Shiva, 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 Indra, come with your beings of your invincible chariot, with your army of heroic warriors, destroy all these negative limitations. That's how I understand those two verses.
Another question from Dilip Swamiji. Is this chapter a prayer to Shiva or prayer to other gods before offering prayer to Shiva?
Dilip, this entire Rudrastadhyayi is a prayer to Shiva. Now, Shiva comes as Indra, he comes as Brihaspati, he comes as Varuna, he comes in many, many forms. In the next chapter, he's going to come as Surya, as the sun, the light of wisdom and the warmth of devotion. So here we are, Ekam Shad Bipra Bahuda Bhavanti. There is only one true supreme divinity who has become this all. And he's known by many names. So we're calling on the one God by many names. Now you're the ruler of the army. Now you're the Lord of equilibrium. Now you're the consciousness of infinite goodness. You're still God to me. Dilip, you are one man, and you're the son to your father and the father to your son. You're the husband to your wife and the friend to your friend. You're called an employee, you're called a manager, you're called a laborer. By management will call you laborer, and laborers will call you manager. You have so many different titles for so many different relationships which you associate with. And you have so many different appearances for each relationship. When you go to swimming, you wear a swimming suit. When you go to play tennis, you wear a tennis suit. When you go to work, you wear a business suit. You get suited up for every different function that you perform. So you have a different name, you have a different appearance, you have a different character, a different comportment, different sets of skills for the different functions you perform in the various relationships you perform, but you are one man. Now here is Shiva. He is one Shiva. He's one supreme divinity. He's one supreme consciousness, the consciousness of infinite goodness. And here he is as the Lord of the armies, as the general of our defense system. He is the guru of the gods. He is the Lord of equilibrium. And again, he comes as Sri Ma.
Question from Wendy Swamiji. I understand that the references to wars and battles are often metaphoric, but in the Swami Purana, Draupadi chose to go to battle for the return of her kingdom rather than get it peacefully returned through a boon. Can you please explain how to understand these battles references in relation to the practice of ahimsa?
Yes, Wendy Ma, every time we want to overcome the darkness within ourselves by our goodness. And the Dharma and the Adharma are in conflict. One side is pulling me towards individuality and selfishness, and the other side is pulling me towards surrender and unity. Now this is the battle. And we are all constantly pulled, tempted by these different opposing forces. And each one speaks with his own logic, his own reason, his own diction. He's got his own voice, his own way of trying to convince me, hey, you should pay attention to me. And that's how I understand the battle. How do we make our forces of goodness always victorious? How do we make Indra the supreme leader of our army so that no limitations, no negativities can come and dissuade us from the path of righteousness? Now, Draupadi said, we have to fight. We know we want to have, we have to fight because goodness must be triumphant over evil. And when when beings are evil, when we have all this evil within ourselves, we have to conquer that evil. We can't just say, oh please, I'm going to surrender to that evil. We must stand up at some point and say, I have defined this way of life as my goal. And that is my Dharma. That is my ideal of perfection, and I intend to live in accordance with my ideal of perfection. So therefore, I must fight against the evil, against the iniquity, against the enmity, which continually pulls upon me and tries to drag me into conflict.
Question from Nilima from New Delhi.
Namaste, Nilima.
Who would be the soldiers of Indra's army?
You! You are the first soldier. Each one of us, Nilima, each one of us are the soldiers in Indra's army, and we're calling Indra to lead us to victory because all the asuras within us are trying to drag us down from heaven. They even want to occupy Indra's throne. They want us to think negative thoughts. They want us to act with selfishness. So we are the soldiers in Indra's army, and we're constantly praying for good leadership to lead us to that pure. The impure and the pure reside within all objects. Whoever remembers the purity, the lotus-eyed pure consciousness is immediately conveyed to radiant purity. And that's the battle. We are the warriors. We are the soldiers. Nice having you in our ranks.
Question from Kumari from Vallejo. How does the Shiva of the Vedic period, the spiritual warrior, compare to Shiva who we are more familiar with today? And what factors are responsible for any differences?
Namaste, Kumari Ma. This is a historical fact that the Shiva of the Vedas was known as Rudra. Shiva also was an indigenous god in India before the Vedic period. So when the Vedas united with the indigenous traditions, then Shiva and Rudra became synonymous. Rudra is another name for Shiva. And so they have the Shiva of the Vedic period is the consciousness of infinite goodness. The Shiva of the later Puranic period became the destroyer, who is always taking bhang and hangs out with ghosts and goblins, and has Sati or Parvati sitting on his lap or nearby. So there are distinctions, but for us, we use Shiva in his Vedic sense. We use Shiva meaning the consciousness of infinite goodness. He is synonymous with the supreme divinity.
We also have the stories of Indra being jealous and fearful and fighting with Krishna and destroying the sadhanas. These come up quite often. What Indra is this?
This is also Indra of the Puranas. Yes, Indra of the Vedas, he is stopping some people from coming to heaven because they have to be very, very pure to get into heaven. But the Indra of the Puranas is jealous, and he is constantly, he's stopping everybody. In the Vedas, we know Indra as the slayer of Britra. He is the slayer of the cloud of confusion, which obscures the light of wisdom.
Question from Gauri from 35,000 feet in the sky.
You're really high. Namaste.
This is a question from yesterday's class, Swamiji. When the gods offered that sacrifice, this is verse 15 in chapter 2,
Yes?
they bound their animalistic nature and offered it to the Supreme Being.
Yes.
You said in your class yesterday that this evolved into a form of animal sacrifice. Her question is, how do we offer our animalistic tendencies today without doing an animalistic sacrifice?
Gaurima, we take all the passions that come from our lower chakras. Remember, we have 3 bhavas. There's Pashubhav, that's the animalistic nature. That means that eating, sleeping, and mating are the most important things in our lives. Then we have Viryabhav, which means loving and sharing and striving for purification are the most important things of our lives. That we're heroes, we're warriors, we're soldiers in Indra's army, along with Nilima. And then we have the Divyabhav, which is the Agnya Chakra and the Sahasrara. And the Divyabhav means we are radiant with light, we're shining, we know what we want to do, we know where we're going, we know how we propose to get there, and we have no doubts. So Pashubhav, our animalistic nature, we say, hey, now, the first thing we do is reason with ourselves. What do I want for my life? Am I only interested in the lower pleasures? Or could I elevate myself to think of a greater good? That's the first step is in our yogic process. Is yam, we take control, we define our goal, we define our path, we make our plan for our life. What is important to me? Am I going to respond to every passion immediately? Or am I going to ignore the passions that don't fit into my goal? For example, the passionate love of my guru is a very pure emotion, and that's going to take me where I want to go. But the passionate love for someone else's wife is going to take me into a lot of trouble. Now I need the discrimination to discern which kind of passion do I want to respond to. And once I get that vivek, once I get that understanding, then I can ignore the temptations of the negative qualities and call on Indra to expel those limitations and to fill me with divine light so that I can remember my purpose in life. That's how.
Okay, Swamiji, in chapter 3.
You'll have to speak a little louder.
Okay, in chapter 3, in verse 17, it says, "May the King of Devotion grant you armor which repels death and makes you invincible, Could you explain what it means to repel death?
Yes, we've talked about the great death before, the Mahan Mrityunjay. The death is that I forget about my spiritual self. The death is that I succumb to the negativities, to the limitations. I succumb to self-deprecation and self-conceit. That is the death. I sit and think about me all the time. I. That's the death. And now may the King of Devotion give me the armor that repels that death, so I remember my spiritual self all the time. I live and I become invincible. That's the armor that we're seeking.
Question from Parvati from Sacramento.
Namaste, Parvati Ma.
If we do have negative thoughts such as fear, and we call upon Shiva and Indra and focus on devotion, it will work for a while. Often sooner or later we need to face our fears and issues. Are there any other ways to fight these fears in addition to calling on Shiva and Indra?
Yes, call on Durga and Parvati as well. Parvati Ma, when you get tired of calling on Shiva and Indra, then call on Durga and Chandi. You've got a whole army of gods and goddesses who are there to protect you. If one doesn't do it for you, then call on the next one. And call them all, and maybe they'll all come. Or at least they'll send one representative. Don't give up. You can face your fears and work through your karma. You have to do that, but you don't have to do it from a position of negativity. You can do it with the grace of God. You can do it with the grace of the Guru. So it's not necessary. I called on Shiva. Hey, Shiva! And it didn't work. So now I'm going to go sit in the corner and worry about what facing my fears is going to be like. No. Don't give up. If you call on Shiva, he will come. And if he doesn't, or if he's late, then call on Durga and say, hey, send that Shiva over here. You remember the story of Vishnu was sitting up in Vaikuntha. Lakshmi was down. She had become a horse. She became a mare on the earth. And she was saying, Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. And Vishnu didn't come. And 100,000 years passed by. And she was saying, Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. She got tired. What's wrong with that guy? He told me to go down and become a mare. He would come down and become a stallion. Well, then Lakshmi got an idea. She said, Om Namo Shivaya. And immediately Shiva came down and presented himself. Hi, Lakshmi, what are you doing in the form of a horse? Lakshmi said, I'm waiting for Vishnu. He said he would come down. And Shiva said, why did you call me? And Lakshmi said, Shiva, one time I saw Vishnu in deep, deep meditation. He was in samadhi for a long, long time. And when he came out of samadhi and he woke up to the recognition of my presence, I said, hey, Vishnu, Jagat Guru, Devadi Devo, Vishnu, you are the Lord of all. Everyone meditates upon you. Upon whom were you meditating? And Vishnu said, hey, Lakshmi, I was meditating on Shiva. Shiva is my inner essence. So that's why I called on Shiva. So Shiva said, what can I do for you? And Shiva said, would you go to Vaikuntha, go to Vishnu's house and tell him that I'm waiting for him down on the earth, and let him come down and manifest himself. And Shiva said, sure. And Shiva went up to Vaikuntha. He said, Vishnu, you look awful. You look like you haven't done your dishes in a long, long time. You have no Lakshmi. Vishnu woke up and said, "Oh, excuse me, Shiva, thank you for coming and reminding me. I have some karma to perform down on the earth." And so Vishnu came down to earth.
Question from Dilip from Florida, Swamiji.
Yes, Dilip?
In Bhagavatam, crying child of Brahma was named as Rudra, and that's Shiva also. How does that fit in the whole picture?
That Rudra, who is Shiva, as a crying child, was born. And this Shiva is unborn. So Dilip, this is the Shiva of the Vedas. He was the Purusha last night. He was the full, complete, and perfect consciousness. The consciousness of infinite goodness. He's unborn. Remember when Shiva went to marry Sati? And Daksha said, before we do the marriage, so in order to take the sankalpa, who is your father? Who is your mother? How can I give my daughter to a groom who doesn't know where he came from? Tell me about your lineage. And Shiva went into samadhi. And Narad Muni said, Shiva is Devadidev. He is the Lord of all lords. He was before this creation began. Now, how can he have a mother and a father? You give your daughter and understand that this is the law of nature. Shiva will unite with Shakti. And then the marriage was performed. So in Bhagavat, there is one tradition and one story, and in the Vedas, there is another tradition. And in every one of the Puranas, we'll find a different point of view. All the stories of Vishnu Purana are told as though Vishnu is the supreme divinity. All the stories of Shiva Purana are told from the point of view of Shiva being the supreme divinity. All the stories of Padma Purana are told from the point of view of Lakshmi being the supreme divinity. All the stories of Kalikat Purana are told from the point of view of Kali being the supreme divinity. There's only one supreme divinity. And we said it so nicely at the end of chapter 2, the last verse of chapter 2. Ishan, Abhimashana, Shana, Sarva Makishana. Oh, supreme divinity, my supreme divinity. All existence is my supreme divinity.
Question from Vishweshwar from Circle Oak, Swamiji.
Namaste, Vishweshwar.
How does the performance of Bhuta Shuddhi mantras for the chakras help us in raising and refining our consciousness towards the goal of becoming being of pure light, of raising us from our animal nature to becoming a being of light?
Vishweshwar, every time we move the energy through the chakras by reciting, making japa of the Bij mantra of each chakra, we're bringing that energy up higher and higher and higher. And in India, we have many villages that are serviced by dirt roads. And the farmers drive bullock carts with wooden wheels. And as they drive the wooden wheels over the dirt roads, they make ruts. And after centuries and centuries, from generation to generation, the farmers are going out to the fields and coming back to the fields. The farmers guide the bullocks into the road where the wheels get into the ruts. And then the farmers climb in the back of the wagon and go to sleep on the straw, and the bullocks know the road. They're on autopilot. Nobody has to look where they're going. They know the way. In the same way, we sadhus are performing Bhuta Shuddhi every day by making japa of the Bij mantra of each chakra. We are creating ruts. We're creating well-worn roads with paths so that the energy knows the way. And we bring up that energy every day from the Pashubha, from the lower chakras to the Viryabhav, the middle chakras to the Divyabhav. And then that's where we stay and spend the day. Go to sleep in the back of the wagon. The bullocks know the way.
I have a question, Swamiji.
Sure.
This is a question about the limitations that we speak of in the chapter 3.
Yes.
We have stories of sadhus who, we have heard of stories of sadhus who have transcended the limitations of the body. For example, they move out of their body or they are seen in different places at the same time. So one goal would be to transcend the limitation of the body. We also hear that we should accept the body as a 5-element body and accept the limitations. So which of these, when we have these two alternative goals, which should we pursue? Acceptance or trying to transcend the limitation of the body?
I'm not even concerned with the limitations of the body. I'm concerned with the limitations of the mind, which is imposing itself upon the soul. And the mind is saying, hey soul, look at, you're limited, you're confined, you're incarcerated in this form. And I want to say, hey, I'm breaking down all the limitations, not just the body, but the limitations of my mind. The limitations would say, I can't be a Brahmin because I was born in a American family of business people. The limitations that say, I can't do it. The limitations that say, I can't learn the Vedas because I'm not of the right caste or the right color or the right orientation. I want to break down all the limitations that say, I am different from you, or I am different from you, or from you. I want to destroy all the limitations that says, I am one with God. And then I have no more limitations, because God is consciousness of infinite goodness. So yes, we will exceed the limitations of the body. No question. The body says, you can't sit like that. That's for yogis. Huh? Can you sit? If you were made to sit like a pretzel, you would be born in an asana. You weren't born like that. Why are you trying to extend the limitation of your seat? And through willpower, we will say, no, I'm going to train myself to sit. Because I know that my mind can't be still until my body is still. Every movement of my body is a reflection of the movement of my mind. In order for my mind to sit still for even a few moments, I have to make the body sit still. Now, how do I do that? Well, there's a limitation. My body says, I don't want to sit still. I've got a backache, I've got a knee ache, I've got a cramp in my foot, this isn't fun. Get up. And I say, Indra, destroy those limitations and allow me to sit still.
Question from Pratibha Swamiji of Foster City. Sometimes I feel my faith is slipping and start wishing for some reassurance. Is this just my ego? Is there to feel the presence of supreme divinity within you, even for a second, to reinstill faith when you are stressed? Is there a way to feel the presence of supreme divinity within you, even for a second, when you're feeling stressed?
Yes, there is a way, and we are doing it right now. We are in the way. The way Pratibha is satsang. The way is a communion with truth, a communion with knowledge, a communion with the bhav. If somebody's got the light, if they've got the bhav, if they got the feeling, and you commune with them, you get infected immediately. Devotion is an infectious disease, and we are trying to create an epidemic. So yes, you can. Just illuminate that light of devotion even for one moment, and all the negativities will go away.
Swamiji, a question from Wendy, again from the East Coast. Swamiji, there are so many mantras for so many different purposes. One can't possibly say them all. How do we know which ones to do and when to do it?
Wendy, that's a question you'll ask your guru. And if you don't have a guru that you can ask, say Om Namah Shivaya. That's the place to start. But there are volumes and volumes of mantras. You see, we have translated volumes and volumes of mantras and haven't even scratched the surface yet. And here we are studying them, and we will learn many mantras for many occasions. So then you can ask your guru, which mantra is most appropriate for me in the most amount of situations and circumstances in my life. And that will be your guru mantra and your bij mantra. If you don't have that relationship with someone whom you can ask, then ask Shiva. Because Shiva is the guru of all the gurus, and he will purify you and make you ready for the guru to come and tell you another mantra. But watch out. Don't get in association with someone like me who's going to give you books and books and books and say, learn them all. Be discriminating.
Question from Sadhuma Swamiji.
Namaste, Sadhuma.
This is related to the Bhuta Shuddhi discussion, Swamiji.
Yes, Mom?
When doing Kundalini Yoga with pranayam and we find the body locking in place and does not move with a straight spine, but there is still some awareness of our surrounding. Is this part of the process of building the ruts on the path, as you say?
Yes, it is, Sadhuma. This is the way that we move into Bhav Samadhi. You see, first comes Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam. We know all those. Pratyahara, we bring the senses inside. And now all we're contemplating is what's going on inside. There's no outside, it's all inside. Dharana, there's three, and now there's a subject, an object, and a relationship. Here's the energy, and here is me, and I'm going up. And then there's dhyana, there's just you and me. Or me and the energy. And then there's samadhi when there's just the energy. And this is the path. So we move from that pratyahara, bringing the senses inside. There's still a multitude of activities going on inside. And then dharana, there's less activity going on inside. And then dhyana, there's no activity going on inside. And then samadhi, there's no me.
Question from Usha from Canada, Swamiji.
Namaste, Ushama.
It seems to me that if we willfully try to sit in meditation without calling on the divine, we can keep watertight compartments in the mind that are not being purified or addressed. Is that possible?
Oh yes, Usha, I agree with you completely. That if we close our eyes and try to think of nothing, we're going to have a hard time doing that. What's the Vedic prescription is saying, think of something, that one thing. And think of it as the most pure thing, the best thing, the most good thing, the most radiant, light, bright, vibrant thing. And then all those little compartments will open up and all the junk that's hidden away, we'll get rid of it. We can throw it in the fire. We don't need it anymore. It's quite impossible just to say, okay, well now I'm going to meditate. I'm going to close my eyes and think of nothing. There's no such thing as thinking of nothing. Always something will come there. Now instead, call on Indra, call on Brihaspati, call on Shiva, call on the gods, radiant with light and love and devotion and wisdom and purity, and fill yourself, guide yourself, convince yourself that you are sitting with those beings inside you. And then meditation will come of its own accord. It wasn't like you had to do something to get into meditation. All I did was call on God, and she did the rest. Om Sam Saraswati Namaha. Namaste.
Thank you.
Do we have other questions?
No, Swamiji.
Wonderful. Well then, in our next session, we'll go on to chapter 4, and that's also in Kakup. It's a mixture of pot, which has no specific meter, and various meters. So we had today some Kakup and some of the other different meters. There was a mixture of meters, and chapter 4 also is a mixture of meters. Thank you very much for joining us. Namaste.